Hi guys, NCWQ here, and I've been doing a little bit of research on forecasting earthquakes, and I actually found a good site which talks about forecasting earthquakes. This was done back in February of 2023, and so therefore I want to actually read this and then talk about mine and another creator's discovery. Um, States after devastating earthquakes, it's common to see discussion of earthquake prediction. And earthquake prediction requires in advance a specific time, location, and magnitude of a future quake. However, earthquake prediction has never been achieved successfully in a way that it could be repeated. Often predictions are vague, such as describing the future earthquake as happening sooner or later, and underlying methods are not scientifically founded. That's not to say we don't know anything about what earthquakes will happen in the future. While earthquake scientists are not able to predict earthquakes, they are able to forecast them. What's the difference between a prediction and a forecast? A forecast tells you the chance or probability of a range of future earthquakes in a given region. This includes how big the earthquakes may be, their magnitude, and how frequently they will occur over a specified time period. Earthquake forecasts are built on observation of past earthquake activity, which may stretch back decades, centuries, or even thousands of years. These observations are analyzed and modeled and use the understanding of physics of earthquake occurrence to determine the chances of future seismic activity. When looking at catalogs of the time, location, and magnitude of past earthquakes, it becomes very clear that damaging earthquakes are more likely to strike along the boundaries of the tectonic plates that make up Earth's crust than in the interior of those plates. So let's look at this real quick. I'm going to turn on the plate boundaries, and you can see the plate boundaries, and this is where they're talking about instead of striking on the interior, like, but here we have the craton, which goes around and around and around and it loops. Anyways, that's the craton edge. But you have areas where no earthquakes hit. Okay, so anyways, in recent decades, the installation of the worldwide networks of seismic recorders has also allowed the detection of much smaller quakes and tremors, including events too small to be perceived by people. These data have revealed important relationship between the relative numbers of small and large earthquakes which underpin earthquake forecasting. Earthquake forecasts can be made for the short term, weeks, months, years, and the long term, decades to centuries. How little quakes give big clues about big ones. One of the fundamental discoveries of seismology is the fact that in a given region, there will be an average about 10 times as many magnitude 2.0 earthquakes as magnitude 3.0 earthquakes. There will also be 10 times as many magnitude 3.0 as magnitude 4.0, and so on. This relation allows us to use small earthquakes, which happen often, to forecast less frequent large earthquakes, which may not yet exist in historical records. Observations and analysis of major earthquakes from around the world over the past century or more has also helped us to understand their aftershocks. These shocks diminish over time in a statistically characteristic way. This relation is used for the short-term forecast of active earthquake sequences to estimate the magnitude and frequency of earthquakes in the weeks, months, and years following the main quake. In these forecasts, large magnitude earth aftershocks are always possible, and in some cases, they can be larger than the main shock. Such forecasts have been used in many countries around the world. After the magnitude 7.1 earthquake in Ridgecrest, California in 2019, a series of forecasts were released and updated as the new media was received. Currently, there is a 10% chance of one aftershock of magnitude 5.0 to magnitude 5.9 in the Ridgecrest region in the next year. So if they're stating this was done in February, then there is a chance, a 10% chance of a 5.0 to 5.9 in the Ridgecrest region in the next year. So that means 23 to 24. Knowing what to expect during an active sequence is important for planning how to respond and recover from a strong earthquake. Records and rock. Geological investigations extend the record of major earthquakes beyond those captured in earthquake catalogs. These studies look for evidence of ground-rupturing earthquakes along a particular fault. Take the Alpine Fault, a 600-kilometer section of the boundary of the Pacific and Australian plates in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Aotearoa, New Zealand. Analysis of rocks along the fault has provided strong evidence that, over the past 8,000 years or so, one ground-rupturing earthquake of around magnitude 8.0 has occurred roughly every 300 years. The most recent major rupture on the Alpine Fault was in 1717, more than 300 years ago. Using this data, earthquake scientists have estimated that there is a high probability, a 75% chance of rupture on this fault in the next 50 years. There is approximately 80% chance of this earthquake will be a magnitude 8.0 or above. This type of medium to long-term forecast allows for preparedness, such as planning for emergency response. In the case of the Alpine Fault, the AF8 program was put in place to keep the community informed and engaged, and to plan the response and build resilience for the expected future earthquake. Maps and codes. Our best long-term forecasts use data from earthquake catalogs and geological studies, combined with earthquake behavior patterns and other knowledge such as geodetic models, which use GPS networks to tell us how Earth's surface is under strain and moving as tectonic plates shift. These forecasts typically provide not just the magnitude and location, but also the range of intensity of ground shaking from future earthquakes. Much like climate forecasts, these forecasts combine multiple models into a single forecast. This is a use of map regions of low to high probability of experiencing damaging earthquakes. These long-term forecasts inform building codes around the world and guide the design and construction of buildings and infrastructure to withstand strong ground shaking from future earthquakes and ultimately save lives. So just so you know, earthquakes can be forecast. They can't be predicted, but they can be forecasted. And it is much like the weather service. Um, you know that the weather service will state that there is a 50% chance of rain in your area, and it's based off models and forecasts and what has happened before. And that's how a forecast is made. Um, so when you look at earthquakes, earthquakes can be forecasted pretty much the same way. You look at the areas where earthquakes have happened, and then you see that most of the time what I see is there's a pattern. And let's say there's an earthquake in Hawaii, then you're going to see an earthquake in Alaska, then you're going to see an earthquake in California or down here. You see earthquakes along here, you see earthquakes here, so you'll see them over here in South America. So yeah, there is a way that it is forecasted. I mean, you'd have to put it into a computer to know what the next area would be that would be hit. However, there are people who can forecast earthquakes, and they do it based off the fact that they can see patterns. Some of us see patterns. Some of us have been watching earthquakes so long that we started figuring out where earthquakes can and will hit. Um, I put together a graph along with Bella a while back, and it was because I was studying the depth of earthquakes, and we were basing it off of the depth of an earthquake to what size it would be. And like I found out that a 3.5 earthquake at 50 kilometers in depth could cause a 4.0. And that was basically what I was seeing happening. I was looking at a lot of them, and like a 3.5 at 35 kilometers deep can cause a 3.85. And I was looking, but those earthquakes would happen in that area. But as you get bigger earthquakes, those bigger earthquakes transfer pressure to other regions, and that's where I don't get involved in that. Um, I tend to try to stay away from it. But when you see like a swarm happening in an area, you can pretty much figure out that there may or may not have another bigger earthquake. Anyways, you guys, I'm Rebecca. I just wanted to share this article with you guys that I read. It's from UNDRR. Anyways, you guys, it's preventionweb.net. Hope y'all are doing well. Please be safe. Take good care of yourselves and each other. And there are people out there who can forecast earthquakes. They're great at it. Um, I suggest that if you want to forecast for your area, that you go to those channels. I know that Ron is good at it. I know that my ex channel that I used to be a part of is good at it. Um, there are a lot of people out there that can forecast earthquakes. The only thing I do on my channel is show y'all where the earthquakes happen and give you updates and news. Anyways, you guys, much love, God bless, and have a great day.